Thank you so much for clicking on my video. Today I will explain my current rankings of all the Resident Evil games I have ever played. I also plan to review a lot of Resident Evil games on my channel as time goes on. I gave this video 3 titles which include my current RE games tier list, you might hate my RE games tier list, and am I a fake fan for my RE games tier list. I wonder which title each of you got. Anyway, I hope to explain as well as I can why I've ranked the games in such a way that may offend or delight other fans. Hopefully I can entertain you guys for a few minutes. Also, apologies for the lack of editing out any mistakes or mumbles I make during this video, and hopefully you guys who are new to my channel don't find my voice too annoying. Right, let's go. So I'll start with the bottom tier called Probably Can't or Won't Play It / You'd Have to Convince Me. The games ranked here are Resistance, ReVerse, Umbrella Corps, Operation Raccoon City, and Gaiden. With the first 3 of these games, I have no interest in online multiplayer Resident Evil games, mainly because I don't play those types of games in general. I'm happy and support anyone who likes these games and types of games in general. Lastly, we have Gaiden. I have seen some streamers like Balk Pursuit play it, and it just didn't seem fun to play. I would love a review of this game from the Sphere Hunter 2. Also, I don't have access to the game, so I would need heavy convincing to play it and help on how to access or emulate it on my PC. With all that being said, let's move on to the next tier. Up one from that tier, we have the haven't played it yet tier. The games ranked here are Survivor, Survivor 2, Dead Aim, Outbreak and Outbreak File 2, The Umbrella Chronicles, The Dark Side Chronicles, and finally The Mercenaries 3D. Let's talk about Survivor and Survivor 2 and Dead Aim. So I'm pretty sure I have access to Survivor and Dead Aim, not sure about Survivor 2 though. I would love to play them all at some point and review them on my channel. Now let's talk about Outbreak and Outbreak File 2. I needed to play these 2 time ago, but with it being a PS2 online multiplayer game, I just put them off. Also, I know there is a fan-made server with instructions on how to set everything up, however I'm lazy and kinda slow, so therefore, I would need lots of encouragement and maybe some polite bullying to finally start and finish both Outbreak games. Alright. Sorry to go on another tangent, but you know you're a hardcore Resident Evil fan when you find your new vocal stem being the word alright, because you love the way Leon's voice actor says it in that one section of Requiem where Leon has to cover Grace with the sniper rifle at the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center. Next, let's talk about the Umbrella Chronicles and the Dark Side Chronicles. I'm not super interested in the on-rails games, but if enough of you guys want me to, I may give them a go. I know they add some lore to the previous titles in the series, and it would be nice to see a reworked Steve Burnside before the inevitable remake. Also, learning more about Jack Krauser would be cool. Rest in peace to Jim Ward and Paul Haddad and anyone else who worked on Resident Evil that is no longer with us. Alright. Lastly, let's talk about the Mercenaries 3D. I believe this game is included in Resident Evil 5's Gold Edition, and it was a Nintendo game. I need to play this too, solely because you get to play as Barry Burton, my dad, our dad, to be honest. I would love to compare it to the other Mercenaries minigames in the franchise too in a video one day. Next up from that tier, we have a tier called Complicated Feelings Towards the Game, or if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. I'll talk about the good and bad with all of these games despite what I've named the tier, because I assume some of you will want to hear my explanations for the games placed in this ranking. The games ranked here are Resident Evil 9 Requiem, Code Veronica, RE5, RE6, RE0, Revelations, RE3R, and Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil 9 Requiem. If you've watched my review called Not Bad, Not Great, Just Fine, you will understand why Requiem is ranked here. As succinctly worded as can be, I'll say this. Grace is half of the game, and the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center is great on a first playthrough, and I look forward to it on repeat playthroughs. Leon's half in Raccoon City is painfully underwhelming on repeat playthroughs, and even on my first playthrough, I was not feeling it. Victor Gideon, my beloved Victor Gideon, my favourite Hear Me Out, was underutilised, and given his fashion motifs, why did he not transform into a snake? This game had CGI movie written all over it, with the way Leon acts, all the cinematic moments, and the two horrible walking simulator moments, namely at the start of the game and Chloe's orphanage section, respectively. Code Veronica. It took me 3 or 4 attempts in a span of 2 to 3 years to beat Code Veronica. I used to hate this game, and some of the hate still resides. Despite that, on my last playthrough of this game, when I was in preparation for Requiem, I started to like, or rather appreciate the puzzles, some of the backtracking, and having the opportunity to play as Claire and Chris in the same game. It will never be my favourite unless Capcom knocks it out of the park with the remake, but at least I can say that the save theme is goated, and I love using it in the background of some of my videos. I'm looking forward to reviewing this one day on the channel. Alright. RE5. I wish this game had focused on survival horror more and had a well-developed AI companion. Hopefully the remake can fulfill those desires for us. I've only completed 5 on normal and veteran. I've seen the start of professional playthroughs, and I think that's where all the survival horror went. I love survival horror games, but not that much. Capcom can keep that mode. If you play with a friend, there's lots of replay value and fun to be had. It's not a bad game at all, just an action Resident Evil game that went too far action and not kind of my thing. Alright. ResidentevilZero. Right, where do I begin? Hookshot, get out of here. 6 inventory slots for each character? Frig that. Eliminators can self-eliminate for all I care. Yeah, this game has a lot of moments and gameplay mechanics that don't pass the vibe check, but I still like it because I like all RE games that I've played, even if there's some hate mixed in there as well. Definitely needs a remake for the sake of the story, consistency of Rebecca's character between 0 and 1, more lore on Billy, and the chance to play it in third person over the shoulder camera, or fixed camera angle. I can't wait to review this for the channel someday. Alright. Resident Evil Revelations. Something is just off with the movement in this game. I think it's just a me problem though. I think the main setting is cool, but the level design and the routing of the game is not my favourite. The enemy designs are freakishly cool, and I appreciate having Chris and Jill together again. I wouldn't go out of my way to play Revelations over and over again like other games in the franchise, but I would like to check out the raid mode of this game and Revelations 2 because I've heard from other fans that they are quite fun. Resident Evil 3 Remake. If I didn't enjoy the dodge mechanics in this game and remake Carlos as much as I do, I'd make another tier below called Mid, just for this game. While I'm at it, I'd put the second half of Requiem in that tier too, but I'm not petty enough to split Requiem's poster in half and make a new tier just to prove a point. Anyway, I'm not a fan of Jill's stark personality contrast and vibe from the OG. Nemesis is rubbish and he's wrapped in rubbish bags, so don't come for me in the comments because even Capcom allegedly knows it and said it without saying it by designing his clothing that way. It's not a bad game, but it's a step down as a follow-up to Resident Evil 2 Remake in many ways, which I will get into my eventual review of this game. Alright. Resident Evil 6. I wouldn't put Resident Evil 6 in the Phantom mid tier because it has 4 campaigns, a mercenaries mode, and there are a lot of people who surprisingly love this game. I have mixed feelings towards it, which will be thoroughly explained in my full review. In this video, I'll say a few things. Every time I replay Leon, Chris, and Jake's campaigns, I don't hate my time with the game. Ada's one is alright, decent at best. But going back to the other 3 campaigns, I find them fun, even though the QTEs can rot in 2012 hell. The level designs combined with the gameplay loops of each campaign is fine for an action horror game, but the survival horror aspect was yeeted from existence. After the Lost in Nightmares DLC from RE5, I assumed Capcom would come back to the slower paced classic survival horror, maybe with action horror well placed throughout the next mainline entry, but we got RE6 instead. I appreciate RE6 for what it was and is, and respect those who love it for what it is despite its flaws. Resident Evil 8 Village. I love Ethan so much because of Resident Evil 7, despite him not being much of a character at all. Village made him more talkative and reactive, but I still loved him all the same. I'll go into more detail about my mixed feelings in my eventual review of Village on my channel. Village had the potential to be a very good RE4 clone, but it lacked strong enough main villains, vast enemy variety, a well-developed third-person mode, a well-written story, and lacked a gameplay loop combined with level designs that would breed constant motivation to replay the game time and time again. I like the boss fights and think they are better than Requiem's by a long shot, as they're at least original and challenging on Village of Shadows. Alright. So the next tier up is referred to as fine. I could argue that every RE game I've ever played is fine, but I've got my critical thinking cap on where I have to rank these games based on fun level, replay value, and how I feel about each game overall. Sorry for that tangent, let's focus. The games ranked here are Resident Evil OG, Resident Evil 2 OG, and Resident Evil Revelations 2. Resident Evil OG, a valiant first attempt at the survival horror genre from Capcom. Sometimes I think it should be ranked a little lower in terms of how much I would replay the game compared to other games in the tier below this one, but I don't have mixed feelings about the game. It's fine for what it is and was at the time of release, and I feel like if I rank the OG lower, then I'd have to rank Resident Evil Remake lower, because they're mostly the same game despite major updates and additions in the remake, but I could never do that to an arguable masterpiece. Alright. RE2 OG. 4 different campaigns, all focused on survival horror. If all RE games could talk or communicate in some way, RE2 OG would have given RE6 a bombastic and criminal offensive side-eye when it released back in the day. I can see why this game is a lot of classic fans' favourite. It just screams comfort game and immaculate vibes. It's not perfect, then again no game really is, but in terms of the story and building off the horror-focused gameplay mechanics of 1 OG, it's a solid entry in the series. Resident Evil 2 Revelations. If I could be biased, I would put this game in S tier just because I get to play as Barry, Dad. However, I would get disliked into oblivion. I might still get disliked into oblivion because of my statement regarding games in the previous tier. Guys, I'm just a girl. Please have mercy on me. All jokes aside, I really do like Rev 2. I find it more fun and entertaining than Rev 1 because you are allowed to switch between 2 characters like in 0, but the level design is better in Rev 2 than in 0 and Revelations 1. I like the story here more and it's easier to follow along with. There's action obviously, but there's more of a focus on a slower paced action as opposed to the faster paced action in Revelations 1. I can understand why some may prefer Rev 1 over 2 though. It just depends on your tastes and preferences. Alright. Okay, so the penultimate tier is called Great. The games ranked here are Resident Evil 3 OG, Resident Evil 2 Remake, and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Resident Evil 3 OG. If this game had RE3 remakes, refined dodge mechanics, I'd put it in a higher tier. The challenging puzzles, the story, the art style, level design, and Nemesis, this game is truly peak. I love Jill in this game, her perseverance, her selflessness, and slapping some sense into the dashing hunk Carlos. And in one of the endings we get a Barry moment. Yes, Lord! I love this game, an amazing attempt at morphing action survival horror in a video game. Let's not forget the RNG everywhere that makes speedrunning fun and fresh more so than many of the other games in the series. Resident Evil 2 Remake. This is my comfort game. While I don't appreciate the cut content and lack of 4 truly unique campaigns like the OG, every time I sit down to play any of the campaigns, I know what I'm in for, and it just feels like going for a nice walk in my local park. What a strange way to describe playing a horror game, right? But I'm sure many of you can relate to the analogy if you're a fan of Resident Evil or Silent Hill and have 1 or 2 from each franchise that is just such a comfort to play, especially when stressed or bored or you just want to kill some time. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard Gold Edition. If the base game was like the last third of the game throughout its entire run, then I would have ranked Biohazard in either fine or a tier below that. Thank the Lord it's not. I love the first 2/3 of this game. It has a strong horror focus and is influenced by the classic trilogy in many ways. While the puzzles could have been stronger and more in quantity, and the boat section could have been structured better, and Zoe should have been the one Ethan canonically picks because Mia is a lying, trifling criminal, the first 2/3 of the game will always hold a special place in my heart. Then you've got the Gold Edition with the banned footage DLCs, content for days, improving the overall replay value of Resident Evil 7 as a gaming product. I can't wait to do my RE7 review for you guys someday down the line. At last we have come to the final tier that I dubbed S tier fun and replay value. The games ranked here are Resident Evil Remake, Resident Evil 4 OG and Resident Evil 4 Remake. Resident Evil Remake. This game has really cool extra modes that revamp the main campaigns. Not to be too Gen Z, but the vibes are immaculate. After several playthroughs of this game, I learned to love it a lot, and it is masterfully crafted, and I think the graphics and art style are arguably the best that the series has to offer, if not top 5. Survival horror just being the main focus and good replay value is why this game, this prime genre example, currently belongs in the S tier. Resident Evil 4 OG. If RE4 OG had the added option of moving while shooting and the added option of gun aiming and control like the remake, I think I would love it 3000. The main gameplay loop, combined with the variety of interesting level designs, just makes this game a masterful work of art, excluding the island. I have more nuanced takes about the game, but I'll save that for my full review of RE4 OG. Also, this game contains the peak iteration of Leon, no question. Alright. Resident Evil 4 Remake. I can't wait to do a review of this game too, because I have a lot of nuanced takes about this one as well. That being said, the replay value is really strong in this version, along with it having the superior DLC, Separate Ways. Sometimes I find Separate Ways to outdo the main campaign. Ada's gameplay and level designs are just that great. Despite these rankings, my opinions on RE games change frequently after replaying each of the games I've completed before, so some of the S tier games could drop to the fine tier, and some of the great tier games can rise or pop up to the S tier. I hope I haven't offended anyone too much with these rankings. If you hate my opinions, I understand, but I can't change how I perceive these games to suit everyone's needs. I gotta keep it as real as I can, you know? Anyway, I look forward to seeing what people have to say about my rankings and opinions in the comments. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please hype the video, like it, subscribe and share. God bless you and goodbye.